Hello everyone and welcome once again to The View from the Midwest. It's time for another Bleedin' Blue edition as we look at the NHL Central. And the St. Louis Blues are the lone survivors out of the NHL Central.
There can be only one.
As they carry on into the third round, and they are currently playing the San Jose Sharks. So we won't be able to start off as we usually did with the Dallas Stars simply because they're no longer playing. I'm sorry, Dallas fans. I had to rub that one in a little bit, but everything considered, the Dallas Stars gave the St. Louis Blues one of the toughest series they had, very similar to playing Chicago, and the Dallas Stars deserve a lot of credit. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the season as everything goes forward in the future. But right now, it just wasn't necessarily their time. We have yet to see if it's going to be the St. Louis Blues' time, as everything has not necessarily fallen into place through the last week. As I've mentioned in my Bleedin' Blue article, St. Louis is currently 1-2 on the week, dropping a couple games to San Jose. Obviously, one in St. Louis, one in San Jose, and then winning one in San Jose, and then coming back to St. Louis for Game 5, which will be on Monday. So it's going to be an interesting week coming up to see what the St. Louis Blues can do. They've had to really kind of tinker with a lot of stuff. They've had to change up their fourth line due to some injuries and due to just trying to get the best players to counteract what San Jose does on the ice, instead of going with Scotty Upshall, who has apparently picked up some sort of upper body injury. They have played Magnus Paajarvi, and fans, including myself, were not very certain of that move. And while he hasn't provided a ton in terms of punch, whether offensively or defensively, he's done just enough. He's done his job. He has provided some speed. He has provided a little bit more puck handling. And if anything can keep the puck in the offensive zone for longer periods of time for the St. Louis Blues, the better off it is for everybody involved, at least from a Blues standpoint. Obviously, the Sharks don't want that. The other addition to the lineup was Dmitry Yaskin. He has done fairly well as well. He's been strong on the puck. Yaskin is still kind of an enigma, even at this point in his career. He's a bit like Patrick Berglund was at that point in his career, where you expect a lot out of him. He's a big body. He's good on the puck. He's strong on the puck when he chooses to be, and when he's not, then it's just easily taken away, which is extremely disappointing. But right now, Yaskin is not necessarily playing as well as we would like him to play, but as long as he's filling the kind of role that he's being asked to do, then you can't necessarily expect a ton more. Right now, the St. Louis Blues, the changes are paying off overall, although they didn't pay off as much in Game 3 as people would have liked, because the majority of the changes obviously were to that fourth line. There was some tinkering with the lineup as well, which caused a huge blow-up on the internet, and I got into a few arguments with people simply because you have to change the lineup at some point. You can't go with the status quo if it is not working, and just because people want to hate on Coach Hitchcock because they don't like him in general, that is not the basis for leaving lines the way they are, just because the poor little players want some consistency. You're professional players. Get over it. Play with who you're put together with and do something with it. The St. Louis Blues came out, did that in Game 4, and they proved that it's a lot to do with effort, not necessarily who you're playing with. Because, again, we've said it time after time, when the St. Louis Blues are playing on top of their game, it's incredibly hard for any team in this league to defeat them. The San Jose Sharks are doing an excellent job of limiting the Blues' chances to do what they want to do. But, again, when the Blues have shown up, when they have put in a consistent effort, they haven't even necessarily had to play full 60 minutes, because they had times where they just decided not to show up in the third period, despite the fact that they were up by 3 or 4 goals in Game 4. But having said that, when they show up, when they give that consistent effort, it is incredibly difficult to beat them. And unfortunately, we haven't necessarily seen the Blues do that enough, and the Sharks have played extremely well throughout the series, with a few exceptions, obviously, in Game 4. 4 simply because the Blues were just taking it to them. So it'll be interesting to see how things go forward for the St. Louis Blues. Once again, the lone team remaining in the NHL Central. As we mentioned, with the playoffs going on, there isn't a whole lot going on in terms of rumors and transactions and everything, because all of that takes place in the offseason for the rest of the NHL Central. So we'll try to keep going with that once that happens. But for now, the NHL Central is looking to the Blues to represent them. They're doing a decent job, because for all the fans complaining, myself included, for everything that we thought went wrong in games 2 and 3, that did go wrong actually. The St. Louis Blues, after 4 games, are tied up. Going forward, they're still in a prime position to get to their first Stanley Cup Finals since the 60s, and it's a great opportunity for them to do so, but the players have to be the ones that go out and do the work. Coaches can only say so much. Coaches can only motivate so much. They can only put so much forward in a game plan. It's up to the players to go out on the ice, implement what is told to them, and if they don't think that that's going to work, do what they do think is going to work, and just go out there and put everything on the ice, because at this time of year, that is what you have to do. We'll see what's going on. Leave us a comment. What do you think the Blues' chances are of going towards the finals? How many games do you think this one is going to go? Is it going to go the full 7? Can the Blues translate Games 4 performance into a couple more and end this in 6? What's going to happen there? Leave us a comment. Love to know what you think is going to happen. Comment, rate, and subscribe. Keep paying attention, to bleedingblue.com. That's where all the stats are going to be for this past week for the St. Louis Blues. But this has been The View from the Midwest, our Bleeding Blue look at the NHL Central. Until the next time, I'll see you then.